Welcome to 5% Radio, where it's all about learning like no one else today so you can live like no one else tomorrow. Please be sure to share and subscribe. What is up, and welcome back to another episode of the 5% Radio podcast. Today, in episode number 69, we are going to be discussing the one thing that will always trump skill. We're going to be diving into, a basic myth around this. If I could just learn to blank, then I would be able to figure everything out. We're going to be talking about why assigning luck to people that have the exact same skill level is not accurate due to this one single and ultimately the most important variable that there is. We're going to be also discussing the power of thinking right and how big of a difference that can make, even if you already have all of the skills required to do what it takes to win at your craft. And then also the high level of transferability that this thing has. Now, I want to start off with a quote by Charles Swindoll, also known as Chuck Swindoll, and I've quoted this before here on the show. I believe, like somewhere in the first 10 episodes, I referenced this quote, but it's so good, I want to circle back and share it again. So here's a quote by Charles Swindoll, also known as Chuck Swindoll. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, the education, the money, than circumstances, than failure, than success, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is that we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% of how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. And I've shared that quote again on the show, and I've read that quote in numerous books that have, whether it's a Christian book written by another author who's been in ministry along with this guy, or if it's a leadership book, or if it's a mindset book. But that quote right there is absolutely perfect to start us off, because what I want to talk to you today, I want to talk to you about attitude. I want to talk to you specifically, the listener, right now, and maybe this episode will shed some light on why you have not moved on in the areas that are most important to you, and maybe this will be the thing that you realize, that's the thing that I've been lacking in my, skill deficiency, so to speak. But I think the myth that I want to address before we go any further is that so many people start off in any venture, and they think that it's all about the skills. They think if I can just learn the details. And I think this is one of the things that people do this because of one of the facts that would influence, it's due to this right here, is that we go to school and we learn all about what? We learn all about facts. We learn all about, what are the statistics? What are the percentages? Like what are the things that I have to go back and think about any class? You memorize the answers and then you regurgitated those. They never sat you down and talked to you about, hey, it's about your mindset. Why do two people grow up in the same home, make totally different decisions? One becomes successful, one becomes unsuccessful. It's their attitude. It's their mindset. It's the way they think. And see, the myth is if I could just learn to fill in the blank, if I could just learn, insert whatever skill here, well, then I'd be able to do it. Well, then what's up with the two people that have the exact same skills and completely different outcomes? You can't just say, well, this guy was just, he was meant to do this, or he was a natural born this or that, because you can develop skills. And attitude, do not get me wrong, attitude to some extent, largely, in a bunch of little ways combined, is a skill, because it's something that you can learn. If it's learnable, then it is a skill. It's not a gift. It's not you were born with it or you weren't born with it. It's not a talent. Some people just have it and some people don't. Well, I just wasn't gifted. No one in my family has ever had a good attitude. It's just not in our genes. Like if you scanned our DNA, the good attitude's just not in there. Like it's not one of those things. And it's amazing the amount of excuses people will assign to their reason for having a bad attitude. I work with a ton of different people, whether it's in ministry or in business or in anything I do. I work with a ton of different people. I talk to a lot of different people. I probably meet with on a regular basis more people than just about anyone else I know. And when I say more people, I mean I'm constantly meeting new people. I have a huge crowd of people that I know and that I see all the time that are friends and close friends and best friends and acquaintances and everything else. But I also have a large number of people that I see on a regular basis, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, of brand new people that I've never met before. And it's so striking to me how many people have a horrible attitude. Just overall, they don't have a good attitude because, see, the myth is that if I could just learn the skill, then I move on. Well, yeah, that's not necessarily true, and that's why I called it a myth. And to illustrate this perfectly, there's a business vehicle that I'm involved in, something that we are working on as one of our passive income streams, as really our primary passive income stream. And I have seen people with lower skill sets, and if you could measure intelligence, probably lower intelligence, or if you could measure, all the stuff that you would think like, oh, the person needs these skills to come in. I've seen people who are below whatever that bar would be absolutely come in and just dominate. And I've seen this in numerous different things. I've seen this in athletics. I've seen this in business. I've seen this in relationships. I've seen this like when I taught martial arts. I taught martial arts for years and years and years. Started teaching at 14 and stepped away from temporarily teaching around 22 just because I got super busy, and it's something that I have yet to get back to. I definitely will as soon as we hit some goals, but I'm delaying that gratification. I could do it now, but as soon as we hit those goals, then I will go back into it, but I'm not going to go ahead and offer distractions to myself just because I can and then lie to myself and be like, well, I can handle this distraction. Maybe someone else couldn't. I'm not going to advise some other guy that's at this level to do it, but so I don't want the distraction. But that being said, so I taught martial arts for whatever that is, like 8 years. And it was crazy to me to see people that came in that were further along on the journey, that had more athletic ability, that were more coachable, they were easier to teach, they had more natural ability, like they had more spatial awareness. They could train easier. They would have to put in less effort than this other person, but this other person had a better attitude. They had an attitude of, I will not quit. They had an attitude of, I don't care how hard it is, I'm going to make it happen. They had an attitude of, I came here to finish. I came here first class, and my goal is to get a black belt, and I will do whatever it takes to do that, versus the person who is always ridden on their skills, their talents, their gifts. There's a book on this called Talent is Overrated, but the people that have the highest skill sets are not always the people that win. And the funny thing is, people assign luck to the difference there. They think the difference maker is person A had the skills and person B had the skills, and person A hit the achievement. They hit the goal. They quote unquote made it. They got to the top of whatever it was. And person B, they have, again, same exact skill sets. Person B is like, well, person A just got lucky. Person A had the exact same skill sets as person B, plus they had attitude. And I don't mean like they were cocky. I mean like they had the right mental attitude about the things they were doing. They realized that they were going to have to exercise delayed gratification. They realized that just because it felt hard didn't mean that that meant to quit. They realized that the person who continues to work the hardest and work the longest consistently, whether things are good or bad, if they just continue to do the exact same thing and grow every single day and not count on luck and not look in the mirror and think, well, I'm just not good enough in this area and that's what's holding me back. I wish I could be better in this area. I wish I could have been blessed like so-and-so in that area, but it's just, I'll just never be able to make it because I'm not good at that one thing, because I'm not a natural born fill in the blank. No, the attitude is the difference maker. There's a phenomenal book, by the way, if you guys want to look at some books on attitude. The Difference Maker by John Maxwell is a phenomenal book. Also, Attitude 101 is a phenomenal book. Another book that is absolutely great is Attitude is Everything. So Attitude 101 and The Difference Maker are both by John Maxwell, and then Attitude is Everything. I cannot think of the author right now off the top of my head, but I will put that in the link in the show notes. But begin reading on this, begin working on this, because if you have the exact same skill set as someone else and they're kicking your butt in the thing you're doing, either they are doing more work than you, or they have a better attitude about the work they're doing, which means they will get better at the work they're doing. And then when they're doing even more work than you're currently doing with a better attitude, and they're getting better at it, like now you'll never be able to catch that person because it's like a giant snowball rolling down a hill. The power of compounding, it just continues to add to it and add to it and add to it and add to it. And you're over here doing the same work you were doing. They're doing more work than you. You have a crappy attitude about the work you're doing. They're doing more work than you, and they have a better attitude about it. So they're getting better at the work, and they're able to crank out more and more and more and more work because they're getting more efficient. You'll never catch that person. So the difference is not the skill set necessarily. And you may have a skill set deficiency in a particular area. One of the most crucial things that you can learn is awareness. I was just reading a book last night by Bob Proctor, and he was talking about the importance of awareness. Our educational system teaches people details and facts and numbers and figures, and they teach you how to study a textbook, and they teach you how to get good at taking notes from a lecture, from watching a video, from a PowerPoint presentation, from reading a book, and then regurgitating that on a test, which gives you almost absolute zero real world value. Like the amount of things. So my wife is a registered nurse. She no longer works as a nurse. She's a stay-at-home mom, but she's an RN. And I asked her the one day, I'm like, do you think you could go past the NCLEX again? Which, like, if you don't know anything about nursing, so they get done with their 4-year degree, if they're, bachelor's in nursing, so they get done with their 4-year degree, and usually they major in, like, biology and then something else, but they get their 4-year degree, they've gone through nursing school, they've done all the different stuff, they've done their labs, they've done their internships, all this stuff, they've worked in the nursing homes, the hospitals, and now they're at the point where, hey, congratulations, you have graduated, here's your diploma, and then they have to go take this test called the NCLEX. And if they fail this test, you can have the degree, you went to nursing school, you graduated, like, woohoo, good for you, but if you don't pass this test, you can never be a nurse. And she knew people that would finish school and then not pass the test and go into some different field after spending, $100,000+ on nursing school. So the difference, though, is I asked her just the other day, I'm like, do you think you could go pass that test again if you had to right now, after working for years as a nurse? And she's like, oh no, there's no way. Like, it was too difficult. She's a great nurse. She still knows all the stuff. She's had more real-world experience than a lot of other people in the nursing field because she worked in multiple different places. She worked at an OBGYN. She worked at a hospital, labor and delivery. She worked in postpartum. Like, she had a bunch of different cross trainings. She was phenomenal at her job, but she couldn't go take that test again because our educational system, everything, I don't care what you do, they teach you to memorize certain things. You memorize formulas, you memorize tables, you memorize, and some of those things are needed. If you're a chemist, there's certain things that you had to memorize that you will have to have in your brain forever. Other stuff you had to memorize for a test, and you're like, you know what? I've never had to use that at my job, depending on what your field is. I have buddies that went to school to be a mechanic. I had buddies that went to school for anything, you name it, and they're like, yeah, you know what? We learned all this stuff in class, but I really wasn't able to actually move forward until I got my hands on real world experience, actually getting my hands dirty, so to speak, and doing the thing. So our educational system is phenomenal at teaching people the details. Robert Kiyosaki actually wrote a book on why A students work for C students. And I love his thinking on this kind of stuff. But really, if you look at it, the A student is someone who is, they're very analytically minded and they do well in school. They're usually a melancholy or a conscientious type personality. If you know Robert Rohns, it's conscientious. They're a high C, so to speak. If you are familiar with Florence Litauer's work, or what they used to call the personalities back in, I want to say it was Greece or Athens, like thousands of years ago, it would be the melancholy type personality. This is very detailed, very on the ball, like they're very clean, very well dressed, very well groomed, love spreadsheets, all that kind of stuff, color code stuff. Like, I have a color coordinated calendar, and I love spreadsheets, and I'm very organized, and my socks have to match and all that stuff. So I have a lot of melancholy. That being said, the educational system is based towards people who are melancholies. They learn very, very well through lecture and reading. The people who did not do that great in school are usually the type A's. They're just going to go and make it happen. And this is why people will get out of high school and they'll think that it's all about smarts. So they'll think that it's all about the skills they've learned, or the certificates or diplomas or all this other crap. And someone else that couldn't have passed any of those tests, that wasn't nearly as sharp in class, that you thought oh, that guy's never going to amount to anything, but that dude just had drive like you wouldn't believe. His mental attitude was like, I'm going to make it happen. I don't care if I know how to make it happen. I'm willing to learn anything, and I believe that I can learn anything, and I'm willing to make it happen. Versus the person that says, oh, I have to go learn all these skills, and then hopefully it will work for me. Huge difference. I'm going to go make it happen. I'll learn along the way, and regardless of what happens, we are going to get from point A to point B, versus I'm going to learn all the skills between point A and point B, and then hopefully, if everything aligns, we get lucky enough that it works out. It's not how life works. So we are taught not to be aware of ourselves. Coming back to what I was talking about, we're not taught awareness. We're not taught how to recognize, hey, what are my weaknesses? What are my strengths? And I don't mean oh yeah, no, I played sports. I knew that I was good at the relays, but I was really bad at I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about becoming aware of yourself. I heard a gentleman say, he's one of my mentors. He's worth over $100 million. And one of the things he was talking about is at the highest level of leadership in any field, I don't care where it is, those people are so self-aware. They're aware of their inadequacies. They're aware of what they need to work on right now. If I am at level 5, I don't need to start working on a level 9 skill set. I need to work on what gets me from 5 to 6. And then I get stuck again, and I work on what gets me from 6 to 7. And then guess what? I get stuck again, and I work on what gets me from 7 to 8. Whereas most people are I'm going to go out and learn all these skills. Skills are important. They're valuable. They make you more valuable as an employee, as a business owner, any of this kind of stuff. Self-employed, they make you better at sales. They make you better at marketing. They make you better with people. Skills are important. But the person who has a great attitude will learn the skills along the way, and they will usually beat the person that has all the skills and a crappy attitude because they had the key ingredient first. They knew that they could learn everything else, but that attitude right there of I'll figure it out along the way and I'm willing to do whatever it takes, that will trump the guy that already has all the skill sets, and then he's hoping he gets lucky because he doesn't believe that it's just about how much he flat puts into the thing. So the myth, if I could just learn how to blank, that's not the thing holding you back. Most of you listening to this right now, you, the listener right now, that's probably not the thing holding you back. It's probably just the fact that you need to keep hitting it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Stop assigning luck to the difference between your success and someone else's success. If they've made it and you're like, man, we have the same skill sets, like same background, like they may have a better attitude, what can you study and learn from them and then take and make even better? Probably your attitude, probably your mindset. Here's one of the things that I do. And Sam Ovens talked about this. He's the co-founder and owner of, before Alex Hormozy became his business partner, of Skool, like Skool. It's an online community. A lot of people do coaching programs and things like that in there. I may do one in the future for listeners of the show, but right now we have not delved into that area. But one of the things that he talked about is when he was coming up, he was making, I think, about $20 million a year in his early 20s. And he had either a very small team or he was a solopreneur, one of the two. I think he was a solopreneur doing, a couple $1 million a month, which is absolutely absurd. If you're wondering how much a couple $1 million a month is, it's a lot. If you make $1 million a year, you're making $83,000 a month. If you make $2 million a year, you're making about $166,000. If you're making $4 million, then you're making about $330,000 a month. Like, so to make a couple million a month is absolutely absurd. Imagine making $500,000 a week, basically. Okay, so this dude was crushing it. One of the things that he talked about was he would learn a skill. His attitude was phenomenal. He was willing to do whatever it took, work the hours, like whatever it took, he was going to make it happen. He had a clear, compelling vision. He knew every single day I'm getting up and I'm working towards this goal. He owned consulting.com and he launched programs like the Consulting Accelerator and all this different stuff. And they were huge programs when he launched them, teaching people how to run consulting agencies. People made a ton of money off of his stuff. And one of the things he talked about was if you could picture basically a robot, they zoom out and they scan back and forth and they find the area that they have to work on to move from level 5 to level 6. And then they zoom back in and just absolutely just hammer that area day in and day out, over and over and over, reading things, listening to things, podcasts, watching videos, working on that specific thing. And then when that becomes a strength, that's no longer a weakness, they zoom back out, they find the next thing. They zoom in, they do that exact same process. If you want to work on attitude, I would encourage you, highly, highly, highly encourage you, read on this. Any mindset book that you can get a hold of, and by the way, read about the author. Like, make sure the author's actually been successful and they're not just someone who's like, writing another mindset book because they knew it would sell. Study the author, see what they've done. I prefer to read books that are written by either business people, or if it is a book on psychology, I want someone that practiced in the field for years and years and years and years and years. I don't just want someone that's like, you know what? I had to write a thesis for whatever degree, and I decided that I was going to turn that into a book, and all they did was research, and like they've never actually had experience applying this to make millions of dollars or to save hundreds of marriages or teach thousands of people how to raise kids. Like I want to read a book by the guy who's already succeeded, and then he takes the principles that he used and he teaches them in a way that is specific to this topic. So if you're reading mindset books, make sure you're actually getting stuff that's proven that the person has actually done something with their life. Attitude 101, phenomenal book. Would highly recommend that book. John Maxwell, that's Attitude 101. The Difference Maker, also John Maxwell. Attitude is everything. Let me go ahead and just find the author for that really quick. It's bothering me that I don't remember that author. That book, Attitude is Everything, is written by a guy named Jeff Keller. So Attitude is Everything is written by a guy named Jeff Keller. Another great book by a guy named Tommy Newberry is The 4-8 Principle. Wonderful book. Another awesome book that really works on just the attitude and the mindset behind success in general is called The Slight Edge by a guy named Jeff Olson. Absolutely incredible book. There are a ton of other books. Winning the War in Your Mind by Greg Rochelle. Incredible book there. There's a ton of them, but find books that are on attitude. Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck. Great book on the difference between the fixed and the growth mindset, which holds a lot of people back if they have a fixed mindset. Growth mindset being, you're able to basically just focus on the work and you can learn anything. It doesn't matter if you know the skill now, you can learn it. It doesn't have to be a gift or a talent. I can learn it because I'm capable, because I can put work in. Versus a fixed mindset, I don't know it now. I wasn't born with it, therefore I'm limited. Wonderful book. So anyway, kind of starting to wrap up here. The power of thinking properly is cannot be underestimated, because the people who make it in whatever they do, you can look at this in athletics, you can look at this in business, you can look at this in music, you can look at this in art, any area. The people who make it have proper thinking about what they're doing. Like, no one just lucked into it. Like, my wife and I were talking just the other day. We watch a lot of Dude Perfect videos. Shout out to Dude Perfect. If you guys watch them, they're absolutely great. If you don't watch them, then you should check them out, especially if you have kids. Our 2.5-year-old loves it. Like, we sit down to eat, and he's like, I want to watch 5 silly dudes. That's what he calls them, because there's 5 guys, and they're funny. So anyway, they do trick shot videos, and everyone's like, oh, that'd be so cool to do. It's one of their trick shots. They did a video recently, and it was like the mile-long trick shot or something like that. If you just look up Dude Perfect mile-long trick shot, the video will pop up. The highlight reel of the video, them making the trick shots, is not the thing that was crazy to me. The thing that was crazy to me is it was showing all of their misses. And some of the shots literally took 200 or 300 tries. Like, one of the things they tried to do on this video was a hole-in-one. And the first day they went out, and between 2 different guys, they had done, I think, well over 200 shots and hadn't made it. And like, they weren't discouraged by that at all. They understood that it was just law of averages. They got wealthy off of making videos about the stuff. They understood that if we keep doing it enough, law of averages says, if I roll the dice enough, I'll eventually land on this exact match. And like, they were talking to one of them, and he's like, yeah, I'm not discouraged at all. He's like, it's not really a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. Like, another thing, I did a half-mile bow shot. And same thing. He's like, yeah, we might not get it today, but we'll get it. Like, we're just going to keep dialing it in. Another shot they did. Go watch this video. Just look up Dude Perfect mile-long trick shot. That should pop up the video. I'll throw a link in the description for that as well. One of the things they did was a 2-mile, I think it was 2.1 mile rifle shot with like 50 caliber. And like, they understood law of averages. I have to take enough shots, metaphorically and, actually specifically speaking, I have to take enough shots that I'll eventually make it. That's the attitude behind success. Like, right thinking says, if I do the right things long enough, consistently enough, at the right, at the right frequency, meaning if I do this thing and I do it consistently and I do enough of that thing every single day, over and over, regardless of how I feel. I have a bad day, I still do the thing in the exact same amount. I have a good day, I do the same thing in the exact same amount. Something goes wrong, I continue to do the thing, I learn, I fix it, I do it again, I plan, I do, I check, I adjust. I think that was episode 16, PDCA. And they continue to do it over and over and over because they have the right thinking behind it that eventually I will make it. It's not wishful, it's not I'm lucky, it's a proper attitude. And then last thing as I wrap it up here is the high level of transferability. Man, you learn skills, wonderful. They do go into different businesses and you can do a lot of different things. But you learn mindset, you can learn anything if your mindset's right. You can learn literally anything. Now, I'm 5'3.5". The half is extremely important, as you can tell. I'm 5'3.5", so we'll call it 5'3". Like, I will never be in the NBA, regardless of the skills and the attitude that I ever had. So if you're doing something that just flat out like will never work for you, like, okay, then that's kind of an attitude thing, because you need to realize that. But generally speaking, by and large, if you have the right attitude, and if you learn the right skills and have the right attitude and mix those two things together, you will make it in whatever you're doing. But it's more about your attitude and less about your skills than you probably think it is right now. So there you go. That is the one thing that will always trump skill level. I will talk to you guys in the next episode, episode number 70. Keep a good attitude. Talk to you then.